speaking, though, it's good to be with you. And we'll have to meet like this for the near term until such time as we can all get together in person. And believe me, I look forward to those days. Um, I can't see the audience, but I know who we've invited. We've invited FAU alum. We've invited high achieving juniors and seniors currently attending FAU. We've invited members of our business community and an assortment of other guests. And the purpose for our get together is to discuss the Business Mentor Program. And so if we can go on here, we have an action-packed agenda. And first off, what I want to do is allow my distinguished list of panelists to introduce themselves. And so there are three of them that have been assembled. And why don't we start with Karrie Prehm. Karrie? You're muted right now, so people aren't able to hear you.
Mike, are you?
I can hear you now, yes.
Mike, are you able to hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So my name is Karrie Prehm. I am the founder and CEO of the compliance consulting firm Global Regulation Advisors. I've been a mentor in the program for the past 2 years.
Thank you. Eric?
Boy, I'm going to be a little more verbose than that. About 1,000 years ago, I was lucky enough to get into a field which was at that time called data processing. That field is now called information technology. And with the advent of 5G, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence, I mean, this field is going to continue to evolve dramatically over the next, number of years. Again, just to show my age, I started off as a COBOL programmer for a telecommunications startup called MCI Communications, rising through the ranks. I guess I was in both network management and information technology. And I ended up leading their national network management system, where I was responsible for their 2 million miles of fiber optic cable. And then WorldCom bought MCI, as many of you might remember, and ruined one of the great companies in America. And Bernie Evers, well, he was in jail for a while, and he just passed away recently. So I moved over to a company called Nextel Communications, where I led their software engineering team for about 4 or 5 years. And then Sprint was going to come buy them, and I didn't see that as a good thing, and it turned out not to be. So anyway, I moved over to T-Mobile, where I led their enterprise program management team. I retired full-time in, I guess, around 2014. And since then, I've done independent consulting in project management, just finishing up my last gig in February, just before the whole world changed, as Michael mentioned. So that's me.
Thank you. Chris?
Hi, yes, I'm Christopher Hill. I work for NextEra Energy in the Trading Risk Management Group. I've been here in South Florida for 7 years and finished my MBA here at FAU. Go Owls. And I had the pleasure of working as a mentor last year. And we'll hear more about that later. Back to you, Michael. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now you'll have to labor through hearing a little something about myself. In the process of doing that, I want to share with you a presentation, which should be coming up any minute now. I'll have to pause this, end it, and start from the beginning. Okay, Michael J. Thomas, born and raised in New York City. Morehouse College, class of 72. I'm dating myself as well. The class of 72 is 24 years after the class of 48, which was attended by Martin Luther King. In fact, Martin Luther King was the reason why I decided to attend Morehouse College, and I've never regretted it. Allstate Insurance Company for 30 years. I started out as an underwriter trainee, and I ended my career as a vice president who and got involved in marketing, product administration, and risk management. After 30 years, it was becoming clear that I wasn't going to be able to make it to CEO, so they afforded me an opportunity to retire early at the tender age of 49. And so for 20 years, I was gainfully unemployed, and I enjoyed every minute of it. The highlights of that time, I mentioned that I learned how to be married. My wife asked me to include that because she often says that while I worked for Allstate, I was more married to the company than I was to her. And to a large extent, she was right. But I think I've got my act together now, and we've been together for nearly 30 years. I wrote a book, and I eventually re-entered the workplace. And it's interesting how that happened. A friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Frank Varas, we were having lunch one day, and he mentioned to me that FAU was looking for mentors to be a part of their Business Mentor Program. He gave me the name of Lauren Sherlock, who was heading up the program. And I called Lauren and I expressed my interest in being a mentor, and she invited me in for an interview. I came in and she told me all about the program and what they were doing. And I got so excited because I was impressed. My heart goes out to people who do this kind of work. And I expressed as much, told her, hey, I'd like to be more intimately involved with the program. And so she invited me back to do another interview with Dr. Rupert Rod, who was the Associate Dean of the College of Business. And in doing so, when it was all said and done, they offered me an opportunity to be the business mentor coach and executive in residence. And I'm not paid as handsomely as I was at Allstate, but in many respects, I must say that this is the best job I've ever had. About the book. The book is the platform from which I operate as whether a mentor or a business coach or an executive in residence. It underpins my understanding of supporting other people who might decide to work in the same sort of environment that I worked in. Now, I don't want to mislead you. I am not an author. I am not classically trained to write. But the experience at Allstate was so rewarding, so totally unexpected. It was so engrossing that I felt obligated to leave tracks for someone like myself who might follow in my footsteps and have an understanding of what they could possibly expect. And as I thought about my career, things slowly but surely started falling into place. And so what you see here is an outline of the chapters that are in the book. There's a chapter about the author in the title, Corporate America Defined, Understanding the Corporate Culture, the Organizational Chart, Working to Live versus Living to Work, which are two completely different things and very important to understand the distinction. Scaling the Corporate Ladder and the Good Old Boy Network, Corporate Politics and the Art of Kissing Ass. And I don't mean to be crude when I say that, but in my mind, there is a difference between being a smooth operator or a sycophant. You've got to love your boss. Seems pretty obvious. Mentors, sponsors, and monsters. No guts, no glory. And on and on. And again, the whole idea was to leave a record, a document that expresses the wisdom of my experience with regard to working in a corporate environment. That's all it was meant to be. As an example, these object lessons that I was trying to leave behind, one of which is scaling the corporate ladder. What you see here is an organizational chart. The images down at the bottom that are circled in blue, those are people who were just starting within a company, entry-level positions. But they distinguish themselves because they understand that in order to scale the corporate ladder, they have to create relationships with people who are higher up within the system. And so as you see, scaling the corporate ladder in my mind is all about doing your job in ways that gain the favor of connected managers. And gaining the favor of connected managers is how you become a part of what's known as the Good Old Boy Network. And becoming part of the Good Old Boy Network is how you get promoted. And it seems pretty simple. And again, I'm not trying to be right necessarily. I'm simply expressing how it worked for me and how it might, in fact, work for others. I hadn't worked very long before it dawned on me that the word boss, when you spell it backwards, is double SOB. Now, that doesn't give you the right to treat them with contempt. As a matter of fact, it's important that you do, in fact, learn to love your boss. and it's not always easy. There was one situation when I was working at Allstate early on in my career, and I was having a problem with my particular boss. And I was frustrated, and I was angry, and I was upset. And I called my father, who was a blue collar kind of guy. He was a gambler by day and a tool and die worker at night. But he was my father, and he was my hero. And I wanted to let him know how badly I was being treated by my boss. And so I called him up, and I gave him the story. And I was hoping that at the end of the story, he would tell me, it's okay, son, you're right, and this is what you need to do. I vented. I finished, and he told me, Jacks don't beat kings. And I thought to myself, wow, uh, that's not telling me much. But his point was, I was working for someone who had more power than myself. And given the situation I found myself in, it was going to be necessary for me to figure out how to make him happy as opposed to waiting for him to try to make me happy. And so as time went on, I came to realize that if you show me a boss, I'll show you someone who's in need of a right-hand man or woman. And that someone should be me. Because this is business, not personal. Risk-taking, no guts, no glory. If you're going to work in a corporate environment and you aren't willing to take risks in order to get ahead, or even in some cases to keep your job, then it's going to be a rocky road. I once read a book. It was a corporate book. It was based on The Prince by Machiavelli. And the takeaway from the book was that the road to success is best traveled by the sly, the slick, and the wicked, or at least that was my interpretation of what was being said. Nothing ventured, nothing gained is something that we've heard a lot. But what's most important in my mind in terms of no guts, no glory, and taking risks is that he who stops being better, in fact, stops being good. A quote by Oliver Cromwell. About the program, the Business Mentor Program. We all need someone who inspires us to do better than we know how to do. That's why I do what I do. That is what inspired me when I sat and I listened to Lauren talk about the program. And that was what really fueled my interest in writing the book that I wrote, because I was trying to help somebody who would be going into a situation, if like me, not knowing nearly what to expect. And so that's what we aim to do. That's the nature, the essence of the Business Mentor Program. Last year, we had 48 mentors and we had 48 students. You'll see on the left that there's a breakdown of the 48 students, what their majors are. You'll see on the right, the professions that the professionals came to us from, banking and finance and hospitality, et cetera. Now, we matched students and professionals in a rather manual, cumbersome way. But thanks to technology breakthroughs, next year coming, or this year that we're in, I should say, we hope to take advantage of something called Smart Match, which is being offered by a company called Mentor Click. And what that does is take advantage of a Nobel Peace Prize winning bit of equipment that will do the matching of business professionals with our students and make what we consider to be an optimum relationship. We look forward to that. This is going to take some explanation, this exhibit. It's called College Grad Skills Preparedness Comparison. The skills that are in question are the skills, the 8 skills that you see listed: critical analytical thinking, effective written communications, working with people of different backgrounds, can apply knowledge and skills to real world issues, analyzing and solving complex problems, locating, organizing, and evaluating information, ethical judgment, and being innovative. Those are the skills that happen to be skills that executives, that employers consider to be critical skills once someone enters their workplace. There was a study that was done by Hart Research. They did it on behalf of the American Association of Colleges and Universities. Similar studies have been done on behalf of another outfit called the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And the point behind the study was to determine how students who graduated from college felt once they were entering the workplace about their ability to be proficient in these particular skills. So for the first example, critical analytical thinking, 66% of the students who were now working felt that they had a good command of critical analytical thinking. The second column of numbers represents what the employers themselves thought about the person's ability to handle those particular issues, those particular skills. And so in the case of critical analytical thinking, 66% of the students thought they had their act together. Only 26% of the people who they were working for thought they had their act together, for a gap of 40%. You'll see 40 points is in red because that's the highest gap between what a student thought and what his employer thought. And you can see the results as you go down. The number 18 is in red because it represents, when it comes to working with people of different backgrounds, it represents the lowest percent of employers who thought their employees had their act together with regard to that particular skill. 55 versus 18 for a gap of 37 points. You go further down and you see ethical judgment. That was in green because it was the highest rank that employers gave students as far as ethical judgment was concerned, but still a gap of 32 points. And at the very bottom, being innovative, 25% of the employers thought that students had their act together with regard to being innovative. Students thought they would had their act together 57% of the time, 25 for a gap of 28%. It's the lowest gap, 28%, but still a difference of 25 points between the perception of the employer versus the perception of the employee. And so you see, we have an opportunity here, an opportunity to let our students know that as they begin to enter the workforce, there are certain expectations that employers have that they aren't currently meeting. And so maybe there's an opportunity for the Business Mentor Program to shine a light on those skills and help them as they matriculate from college into the workplace. The last thing I'll say about these skills, these 8 skills, some people refer to them as soft skills. Some people refer to them as essential skills. They are different than hard skills. Hard skills are what you learn when you go to class, okay? But it seems interesting to me, if I were thinking critically and analytically, it seems to me that none of these skills are being actually taught in the classroom. Perhaps they should be. Something to think about, something that in fact the AAC and you people are indeed thinking about, and it remains to be seen what comes from those conversations. Let's move on. The primary objective of the Business Mentor Program, as I see it, is to help students bridge the gap between learning and earning. Bridge the gap just in terms of making that transition, bridge the gap in terms of the essential skills that we talked about, bridge the gap in any regard that might be troublesome for them as they try to move from the left to the right. And so when it's all said and done, mentors are wanted. Now, what I just went through was how I see the mentoring exercise, what worked for me. Not everyone is going to work in corporate environment. Not everyone is going to work for a Fortune 500 company, okay? But everyone will be working one way or another. And there are professionals out there in the community that we are close to, that we would like to invite to tell your story, to share your story with our students as they begin to enter the workplace. Because there are experiences that we know that you've had and that you continue to have that will inform the behavior and the conduct of our students if only given a chance. And so that's the purpose for our get together here. That's why I'm speaking with you, is because we need your help. The students who are listening to this, I want you to know that we want to help. We want to provide you with support from a mentor who's been where you have decided you want to go one day. And so with that said, I think the next thing we want to do is give each one of our distinguished mentors who has joined us today an opportunity to share their experiences with the program, because they've been through the program for a year, they've worked with students, and they have a lot to say. So I'll stop sharing this, and I'll turn it over to Karrie. Karrie, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mike. So in the 2 years that I've participated as a mentor in FAU's program, I've been able to experience both the in-person structure as well as having a virtual arrangement this past year. I will say FAU does a really nice job of matching students' backgrounds with mentors' specialties and various strengths. It's interesting because in the program, I feel that a lot of the students are all working through their own unique challenges, and the mentors really do get to play a critical role toward helping them achieve whatever their goal might be. So I'll say a few words about my mentees. So my first mentee was an undergraduate student, and she was trying to secure a summer internship that would ideally turn into a full-time position post-graduation. So we focused on all of the nuances that come with interviewing, making sure that the resume is solid, that it contains all the keywords that might get picked up in a search, creating a LinkedIn profile, what questions to expect during the interview process. And then we would regroup during each stage of the whole interview process and identify what went well, what she could have done better, or any curveballs that were thrown to her as part of the process. One of them that seems to stick out in my mind is how to respond to compensation questions. What are you expecting to make? It's one of those things that for us seasoned professionals, we forget that we were at one point in our career stumped by those types of questions. So working through those types of details. Now, that was an in-person arrangement with my mentees. So most of our interaction was done through FAU's gatherings and then over the phone. My second mentee was a graduate student who was based in North Carolina, and she was already working in her desired field and company. One of the leaders in her organization had approached her about a position that was going to be created, and it would ultimately mean an advancement in my mentee's career. The problem was that it was just not gaining traction. It was just stalling. And so we really focused on her personal SWOT analysis and helping her to move out of her comfort zone and into that driver's seat to really push this promotion along. I am happy to report that she moved into that new opportunity earlier this year in January. So we cultivated a relationship over technology, email, phone, text, video chat. We never actually met in person. I would say that the virtual arrangement really worked out well for myself and for my mentee. This was my second year participating in the mentor program when this virtual arrangement was presented to me. It didn't look like I was going to be able to participate as a mentor for a second term because of my travel schedule really becoming intense. And so this virtual arrangement was presented to me, and it turned out to be very flexible, where my mentee and I could coordinate our gatherings around the different things that we had going on with our businesses or personal lives. So we were speaking at night, we were speaking on the weekends, occasionally during the day in between meetings. I think that the virtual mentorship really gives students the opportunity to strengthen the communication skills that are so necessary for anyone who's entering the workforce or trying to excel in their career, given this current environment where so much is changing with the dynamics of conducting business. Being a mentor is definitely a commitment, but FAU has designed a program that is very flexible, so it is possible for mentees and mentors to be connected and to be involved with each other. Just as a final thought, I will say that it is very rewarding to celebrate these professional wins with the students and to know that that you've been there as a resource, to help them with their professional growth. Mike, I'll turn that back over to you.
Eric, you're on.
All right. Let's see. I really like the fact that mentors are both a mix of currently working and retired or semi-retired people. I think that gives the mentees the opportunity to really choose the best person who can help them move their careers or their academic careers in a positive direction. I guess I had a relatively good experience with my program and my mentee, and I say relatively because I'm not really sure that my mentee and I were a good match for each other. While we met in person every other week and had a number of really great conversations about her career and her personal life, I personally think I would have been better off with a mentee who was in technology and was really ready to take the next definitive step in their job or graduate school. Now, Mike and I have spoken about this, and they certainly, and Mike, talked about the ways they're strengthening their match of mentors and mentees so the students are best served. And I think that's a really positive direction for the mentor program to take. Now, with that said, there are a number of things that I really like about the program that I want to make sure I say. One, I think there's flexibility to mentor and mentee to figure out how best to meet, how often, and what to discuss. I think Mike and his team have really left it up to the mentee and mentor to figure out how they can best serve each other, and because one size does not fit all, either from a student or an environmental perspective. So I like that. Number two, I think there's a lot of good constant communication between the FAU mentor leadership team and the mentors and mentees. And they serve good food at these things in person. And they had, a number of in-person and online meetings over the past year. And I think a lot of people, the feedback I got, and my own opinion is I got a lot out of it, and I think they were really good. And you get to meet the other mentors and mentees, which is always a nice thing to share that commonality you have between you. On a similar note, Mike and his team are really eager to meet and discuss ways to constantly improve the program and to remove any obstacles that might impact the success of the program. And I got to give Lauren and Mike and the rest of the team a lot of credit for setting up that kind of environment where everybody feels comfortable, making comments and making suggestions on how to move the program forward in a positive and meaningful manner. And the last thing I want to say is I think there's really good synergy between the FAU mentor program leadership and the FAU business school professors, deans, and professional staff. And I think that synergy is extremely important because there's a lot to learn and a lot of give and take between those organizations. So, I could go on and on, but I think that's about the crux of it. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Chris?
Hi, thank you. I wanted to comment on one thing that Eric had mentioned because initially, one of the first things I thought about the program was that I also had a bad match. I was paired with somebody that wasn't in my same major. She was interested in IT, and I'm more of a finance person. But it actually turned out to be a great positive for us, both of us, in fact. I learned a little bit of that aspect, and I was able to open up my network to IT professionals to her that could connect her to people that can do that for her. And we were able to focus our time on more of the things that you described within your presentation, Michael, kind of the soft skills and the things that you don't learn in school that you really need to know when you get to the workforce. We did some things like Karrie described. We spent a lot of time on resumes and interviewing. She was able to successfully land a summer internship, and we still are in communication there about her experience and how to turn that over into a full-time type of career if she chooses after she graduates. Some of the students already have a lot of direction on what they'd like to do, but I found that working as the mentor, you can help steer them and open their eyes to more possibilities. Whereas you might think that going through school, you're destined to do one specific thing, but there's all types of jobs and things are changing along the world into new jobs that you can new careers you can get into. And I also think, especially with the things that are highlighting in the news today with racial inequality, uh, these are areas that you can talk to the students about because they're going to be the leaders that change the world and set the direction of the world. And some of that ethical, some of that morals, more than just business and numbers, needs to be learned from someone. And if professionals aren't helping teach and cultivate that in the young people, they're not going to get it. I've worked in other mentoring programs as well as this one, and I really liked the structure of this, where there's a lot of interaction, a lot of encouragement to communicate, some workshops for the students and as well the professionals where you can interact. And I really think that really builds up the power of this particular program. The network and the people guiding it, specifically Michael and his team, have set up the ability to communicate and constantly look for ways to improve. There's no right, there's no wrong way to do this, and you are encouraged to find more right ways to do it. I really enjoyed it, personally fulfilling, knowing that I'm making a difference in my community, the one I want to live in, and helping the next generation really find their path. Back to you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. I thank everyone. It's very good feedback, and Chris, I'm so happy you brought up the race relations part of it, because so far we've focused on academic issues, but social issues are equally important and of value. And our professional community has a role to play in those conversations as well. I also like the fact that we've spent some time talking about the soft skills. I heard it once mentioned, and I wish I could give the person credit, but I heard it said that hard skills will get you hired, and soft skills are what get you promoted or fired if you don't have any. It tends to be true that once you get in the door, it is important for you to understand how to treat people. It's important for you how to make people feel comfortable in your orbit. It's important for people to know that they can trust you. And these are the kinds of things that are earned by way of mastering soft skills. And so I don't want to belabor the point. We are kind of running out of time, but suffice it to say that everything that I heard today from my mentors is deeply appreciated. You are, in fact, a distinguished panel. And so now it's time, I guess, to turn it back over to Kelly so she can feel or have us feel whatever questions might be out there within the group. Kelly?
Great. So I'm going to give each of you just a brief moment to describe sort of your weekly or monthly time that you put into the program, just to give some people that perhaps are thinking about this for their next year, how much time would they be giving? So Karrie, could you start?
Sure. So I would say that on average, we were probably spending about an hour a week. Of course, for in-person meetups, that would be more time. And then, of course, you've got the meeting time. So anything that was done remotely, I would say maybe about an hour, hour and a half. My mentees might have sent me some documents to look over and give feedback. Usually that didn't take very long. It would be their resume or maybe some job descriptions that they were considering. But on average, I'd say probably about an hour, hour and a half a week.
Okay.
Eric, how about you?
Yeah, I think that's probably around the right amount of time. We met every other week for probably about an hour. And then in between, I would either review a resume that she was working on or make a couple phone calls on her behalf. So yeah, probably hour and a half a week is about right. And by the way, it was not unpleasant. I mean, it was actually fun to do it. I didn't look at it as a burden. We met over in Starbucks and, sat and had a cup of coffee outside. I mean, it was, it was not an unpleasant experience.
Great. Chris?
I think similar to both of them, we kind of varied our frequency. Some months we might meet every week, and other months we might meet only once or twice. And the timing kind of depended on the topic. Sometimes we might meet for an hour, other times we might really get really in depth and roll on to other topics, and it would be 2 or 3 hours. It never felt like a burden because it was almost like building a friendship and just having fun and having a conversation. A few times she did come to my company and we did some things there, but for the most part, I wouldn't say it was a huge time commitment, but a great benefit commitment.
That's great. Michael, I wanted to give you a chance to maybe discuss a little bit about your plans for this coming semester and year, because so many of our students are going to be studying remotely. Are you planning on, suggesting more remote relationships?
Absolutely. And thanks for bringing that up, Kelly. As a matter of fact, in years gone by, and we've only been in existence, we're coming into our third year. And in previous years, what we tried to do is put an emphasis on mentors and mentees working out their own schedule to meet together. But we also wanted to have in-house meetings where we put together workshops that talked about different skills and different issues that we thought would be of interest. Unfortunately, given everyone having to adopt a pandemic lifestyle right about now, which they need to do, I anticipate that there will be a lot of activity that's done virtually. I think that we will have to get to work and putting together sessions that are recorded and are available for people to take part in at their own leisure and at their own time and in their own private space. When the time comes, and I have faith that it will, when the time comes that we can safely get back together as a group, there's nothing to replace human interaction and an open forum where folks are freely exchanging ideas and learning from one another. And I miss those opportunities. I'll continue to miss them until such time as we can re-engage. But the heavy emphasis will be placed on virtual activity. And if and when there's a time to meet face to face in a safe environment. Again, that would be left to the individual discretion of the mentors and the mentees that are matched. We'll have to be careful, and I place an emphasis on safety first. So everyone needs to take that seriously, and we do as well. So there'll be a heavy emphasis on virtual meetings moving forward.
I know there was a comment in the chat a little bit about, what happens to the relationship. Karrie, maybe you can speak to this. You've done this multiple times. What happens to your relationship from your previous mentor match? Do you ever, reconnect? Do you hear from her? What happens there?
So the first mentee that I was connected with, we have touched base occasionally. I think that the communications have fallen off a little bit. So every couple months, I might reach out to her, she might reach out to me. The virtual relationship, because we were already so comfortable picking up the phone and calling or emailing, that one seems to feel like it has maybe a little bit deeper ties there where it might last a lot longer. With both of my mentees, I left an open door. It's not confined by the boundaries of the program starting and ending. At any point, they can reach out to me if they need guidance at different stages in their careers, and I really hope that they take me up on that offer. But yes, my first year mentee, we haven't been communicating as much as we were during the program. The second year, because it was virtual and because we were already so used to those means of communication, that does seem to be continuing.
Did anybody else want to add to that?
I'll speak to it. I think your mentor-mentee relationship definitely evolves over time. For mine, we continue to communicate. I spoke with her last week, and she's, as I mentioned, going through her internship now. There's things you can help people, students, learn and navigate through mentorships that you can't really talk about before you get to them. Situations that will come up, how to interact, how to do these emails to communicate and make sure you're getting the experience that you want to get from that. And I imagine as she goes on into next year, how you turn that internship into a full-time job. The way we set it up, and this can be different for everyone, is I actually wrote out a list of things similar to the way Michael did, of skills and topics that I wanted to cover during the program. And I gave it to her and I said, which one of these are you interested in? And she marked off several, and there was no way for us to get through all of them just during the program. So we're still kind of going through that list and talking about these important things that she feels is important to her. And as we go through the list, different things happen. As I mentioned, the social justice going on, and we'll spend some time on that. So things that initially we didn't even plan on talking about came up being big topics that we spent a lot of time on. So I think it will fluctuate, and hopefully you'll have a relationship where you become friends and you're learning from your friends at that point, and you don't have to be in a program per se telling you you need to meet or work on this. It just comes naturally. So that's my experience. Thank you.
Great. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of everyone's time. Michael, I'll give you a chance to wrap up if you like.
I will. There's one last exhibit that I would like to share with people. I don't know if it's coming up or not. Here it is. Contact information. For those of you out there that are students who would be interested in being mentored, you need to reach out to me as quickly as possible. My contact information is shown below. My email address is thomasm@fau.edu. My office phone number, which has been directed to my home here because I've been working from home, is 561-297-3676. For the business professionals who I am anxious to hear from as well in terms of becoming newly enrolled mentors, the same is offered. My email address and my phone number. As quickly as you can make contact with me, I will engage you in the process of interviewing for the opportunity to be a mentor, providing you with forms that you'll complete in order to enroll in the process. We'll educate you on everything that MentorClick is bringing to the table to help us match you with a student, and we'll go from there. I can't begin to tell you how much I am interested in helping you help us help our students. If ever there was a time for us to think about the well-being of students in the current environment that we're dealing with, whether it's virtual learning or the economic pressures, there are a whole host of issues that are facing our students today that many of us didn't have to face. Many of us were able to transform from the school environment to the work environment without much problem, but that's not the case today, unfortunately. So we need your help. And if it sounds like I'm begging, I apologize for that, but I am, as a matter of fact. I would do that for the sake of the students who need our help. And so if there are any other questions that we can help you with, please let us know. We're anxious to be of service. And Kelly, with that, I don't know if there's much more that I can say. For some reason, Kelly, we can't hear you.
Sorry. So I will follow up with everyone, including Michael's contact information, just to make sure that you got that. And this video will be made available on our YouTube channel. So if you know someone that might be interested in the program, please share that as well. And with that, I will sign out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Analysts.
Everyone have a fantastic day.
Thank you, Michael.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.